All right, guys. I wanted to make like a little wish list on things that I think could make Preservation Evoker like significantly better. Not that they necessarily need to be significantly better, but it's the first time that the class has existed, so there's obviously like some rough edges, I guess. Partly because of the range and just partly because of like the toolkit. It kind of just feels like a raw like HPS healer with not a ton of utility. I would say like the most utility it has is probably like Klepto, which seems to be particularly good into Resto Druids. So I play this class a lot, and I always think about, the things that like screw me over the most. And I would say the number one thing that messes me up the most is, people talk about like the range on Evoker being 30 yards, when the reality is the range on Evoker is melee range. Every, 14 to 15 seconds, you have to constantly leap into the middle of the fight where you don't even get to utilize your range. This is 30 yards. This is not how Evokers get to play the game. The reality is this is where Evokers have to play the game. And believe it or not, this is horrible. You are asking to get swapped to, you're asking to get CC'd, and it is really, really brutal to deal with. Not only that, Verdant Embrace, if you get knocked on your travel time, keep in mind that there is a travel time, and I've lost, countless games where I'm flying to my teammate to try and heal him, and he just dies before the travel time heal gets there. If you get knocked mid-air, if there is a ring of peace down mid-air, if like, anything else like messes with your path to the target, your heal gets immediately canceled. And whenever I talk about things like this, people are like, oh, well, there should be counterplays. There should be counterplays. I understand it like on life grip, I understand it on rescue, but like a rotational heal, like it just feels so wrong. So the number one most frustrating thing for me is Verdant Embrace should not move you. Just straight up, you should be able to heal like this. And it's possible, because if I were to echo this guy and Verdant Embrace myself, he gets healed. You see how that little beam flies at him? It could literally just be that. It's actually that simple. This also helps another issue, okay? You get absolutely destroyed by roots on Evoker. Could you imagine if you want to heal your person who's right here on any other healer, and you're in a root and you just can't press your heal? Some roots you can't dispel, sometimes dispels on CD. Sometimes you're actually in the middle of doing a very important stasis combo, and if you press dispel, it completely screws your cooldown. It's very, very frustrating. It helps with the issue of roots not messing you up as much. The second most frustrating bug, well, I shouldn't really say it's a bug because it might actually be intended. If you are playing Evoker and you know what Stasis does, it stores your next 3 heals, okay? So you Stasis, you Verdant, you Echo, you Dream Breath. This is one of your like most basic and go-to Stasis combos. And when you press this button to release all of your heals, if any CC hits you, your cooldown just gets stopped immediately. It would be absolutely amazing if either your heals could continue to go off, which some people might think is overpowered because like, yo, you're CC'd, why are your heals going off? Or they just pause until you're out of CC. One or the other. I'm fine with either, I guess, technically, but getting your 1.5 minute cooldown just blown out because it's like got like a delay. Maybe if all of the heals shot instantly, that would fix it, but it kind of goes like one after another, like how they're done in that order. But maybe if it could just shoot all of them out at the same exact second, like when you press it, that would fix it as well. Or Stasis getting screwed over is really, really frustrating. I'm kind of doing this on the fly, so not everything is like particularly in order. Another thing that I was thinking about is I kind of feel like one of these talents, I don't know about PvE, but I feel like these talents are a little underwhelming from my point of view. And one of the things that I actually really liked in last season's tier gear is that your Spirit Bloom actually put a hot up. I feel like, obviously, well, we're actually not getting this tier again, so it doesn't really matter. But Obviously, it's kind of like a copy of how the last tier works, but I would really like to see one of these talents change to putting that hot up on the Spirit Bloom, because I feel like Evoker is one of those classes that is so susceptible to CC, and they're always putting himself in a really like tough spot. So having like any healing that could happen while you're CC'd makes it feel infinitely better. So like a change to the empath, change empath talent to hot on Spirit Bloom. It could be the other one as well. I'm not sure which one of these are used in PvE, if any of them, but from PvP, both feel like kind of unnecessary, I guess. Sometimes I'll take Spiritual Clarity because it does feel like a little bit more HPS if you need to pump them on CD, but I think having the hot would also feel really good. And then Empath, I don't think has been necessary for a while because we've just gotten so many stats and our tier gear just makes it feel like we have such an abundance of essence it doesn't actually matter. So another thing that I was thinking, AUG Evokers have it and Dev Evokers have it, is some sort of way to lower the cooldown of your kick. 40-second cooldown kick, I could be wrong. I think this is probably the longest interrupt, the longest cooldown interrupt in the game. I don't think it needs to be as good as some of the other specs. I think like Dev might go down to 20 to 24 seconds, and I think AUG is actually a little bit higher than that. Okay, reduced by 20 seconds. So Dev is 20, and AUG is also 20. Wow, that's crazy. I don't actually think it needs to be 20, but I feel like 40 is maybe a little bit too long. So like a talent, I don't really know where it would go. Let me take a look at the talents here. But a talent to reduce CD of kick, but it also reduces the duration of the kick. Maybe take it to 30 seconds, 3-second lockout, as opposed to 40 seconds, 4-second lockout. So there's like a little bit of a trade-off, but I feel like Preservation right now has a really tough time defending itself against CC. It ends up being a problem. Now, if this happens and Verdant Embrace does not move you into melee, things like this might not be as necessary, but I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head. And if the entire list of what I'm saying goes through, maybe Preservation would just be by far the most ridiculous healer. Maybe this shouldn't happen, but all of like the quality of life changes should go through. I'm not sure. You know, I play the class a lot. I like the class a lot. I don't want to say there's a lot of room to improve on the class, but it is the first expansion that this class has come out, and I feel like there are definitely ways to improve on it, but Evoker is incredible. Like, it's my favorite class for a reason. I absolutely love it. This is going to be a very controversial one, and that's okay, but I feel like Shroud probably needs a rework, and I'm incredibly biased. You could call me crazy. You could tell me this is BS, but that's all good. So right now, when I play against specific classes, specifically like Shadow Priest, specifically any spec of Rogue, and specifically Arcane Mage, they, in my opinion, hard counter Nullifying Shroud. You can get Cheap Shot off 3 times, you can get Spell Stolen 3 times, you get Shadow Priest Purge 3 times, and it feels really bad. Okay? So into those 3 classes, Shroud feels like it does absolutely nothing. But into all of the other classes, it feels like Shroud is maybe too OP. I'm wondering if there's some sort of middle ground where Shroud duration should maybe be halved, but it should be a full like 15 seconds of flat immunity. Like, so if you're like a warrior and you can't get Shroud off, well, now it only lasts 15 seconds and you don't have to deal with it, but now you're also not getting hard countered by rogues and mages and Shadow Priest. So maybe 15 seconds is too long. Maybe it would need a longer cooldown if it's 15 seconds. You know, I'm thinking it should be undispellable, but I feel like Shroud might need like a rework where it's not good enough against the classes that counter it, which is a smaller percentage of classes, but it's too good against the classes that don't counter it. So I guess the way I think is, you know, maybe non-dispellable 15-second immunity to CC. this is obviously up for debate. Maybe maybe increased cast time, maybe increased CD, maybe shorter duration, maybe 12 seconds, something like that. But I feel like it just getting ripped by classes that have no care in the world about dispelling, or classes that can press, infinite CCs. It feels really bad. I feel like Shroud is too good against the classes that can't deal with it, and not good enough against the classes that can deal with it, I guess. So just a thought on that. But yeah, Divide and Conquer. I don't even actually think about this, and I don't actually care about it all. But this is just not LOS teammates. Like this is just super troll. I feel like the talent isn't good enough to make it like LOS your teammates. Doesn't really make any sense. I want to talk about Unburdened a little bit. This is going to be really, really biased, because I am a Preservation Evoker, and by all means, like, I don't balance the game, so, just spitting ideas out here. I actually feel like every healer can deal with roots really easily. I would like to see Unburdened, Flight, remove roots, and then give you half duration hover. So I kind of feel like, as of right now, if you play Unburdened Flight, and maybe this is not true for Dev, maybe Dev needs it because Dev is like not tanky enough and Dev needs to kite more, but I feel like when you play Unburdened Flight, you literally just can't be touched by melee. Like it feels ridiculous. So yeah, so I don't think it should make you immune to roots, but just remove them so you don't get screwed over as hard as Preservation. Maybe even the other specs, I'm not really sure. But I think it should half the duration on hover. I think it should come with a cost, Make the ability really powerful, but it comes at the cost of having half duration move cast, as well as the freedom isn't lasting as long. Because I feel like the duration on hover, I feel like when you're playing the freedom, it feels like it's very, very difficult for melee to actually stick on you. Maybe a change to the duration to make it like a little bit more powerful from removing roots. I guess like the last idea that I have, at least off the top of my head, because I think about Preservation a lot. I don't know why, but I feel like these talents are like a little undervalued. Maybe these are good in like Mythic Plus or something. I always thought like maybe, for example, like one of these could maybe like Walloping Blows could do it, and then you could like maybe take a shorter CD or something. I don't know exactly how you would do it, but it would probably need to be a longer cooldown. But like if Tail Swipe like turned into like a leg sweep or something, where you have an AoE stun to kind of give you like a little bit more utility, because I don't actually think Preservation actually has that much utility. So maybe like a 2-minute cooldown, 3-second AoE stun if you're in melee range, something like that. If you were to spec into like Walloping or something. So Racial can turn into a stun, something like that, I guess, from some sort of talent. I think 2-minute cooldown stun would be kind of okay. It would be similar to Terror of the Skies, except like this one is very slow. It's a little easy to dodge, I guess, for example. But these are just like some of the ideas I have on Prez. The spec is a lot of fun, but it would be really nice to get like some of the quality of life changes. Like this is a quality of life change. This is a quality of life change. And then these would be kind of like flat buffs and, potential like a little bit of like reworks to make the spec feel a little bit more viable. Curious like what you guys think if you play Preservation, and like what you would like to see on it. I'm not even asking for increased range, because I feel like that's not something that like Blizzard wants. All I'm asking for is to actually be able to play at the range that I'm given. Oh, there's actually one other thing, okay? This is very, very minor, but Disintegrate, might spell that wrong, increased to 30 yards for Prez. And I'll show you why. It's like kind of tough when I am trying to like max range, like I finally am able to play at the the range that I'm given, and I'm able to like Living Flame from 30 yards away, but I can't cast Disintegrate. Look at this. This is kind of stinky for me. I got to move in a little bit closer So this would be like another quality of life change, just to have those extra 5 yards on Disintegrate. Not huge, but yeah. Still enough to, I don't want to say complain about, but enough to ask for a nice quality of life change on that. This is a very, very frustrating one to deal with, and I don't think we'll see this get changed. But I would really like to see this happen. I'm incredibly biased, and I'll you know, discuss like my point of view. But Communion should work through Cyclone, and Diamond Ice, and big DH in cap. All right. Now, every time I talk about this, people are like, the ability should have a counter. The ability should have a counter. They're like, I would love if my bubble couldn't get mass dispelled. That's fair, okay? But what if you couldn't even press bubble when you were in any of these? There was actually a time where you couldn't bubble out of Cyclone, and they changed it. Your biggest cooldown getting, like, absolutely destroyed by an instant CC, and the most, like, meta healer right now, it's really, really difficult to deal with. I would say, like, Ray of Hope has a similar problem. I don't play Holy Priest, but really tough to deal with. Really, really tough to deal with. There's not much I could say other than a 3-minute cooldown just getting completely destroyed by, like, a couple instant CCs or, you know, something like that. It's really tough. Also, Rewind needs to get fixed, okay? Rewind buffed back to 100% in PvP, and I'll explain to you what happened, okay? So, at the start of the expansion, Rewind was 50% of damage taken in 5 seconds, in last 5. Blizzard said, wow, that is really bad in PvP, so we're going to double it, okay? So then it was 100% of damage taken in last 5 seconds for PvP. Now, for PvE reasons, Blizzard nerfed it to 33%, okay? 33% of damage taken in last 5 seconds, because it was really crazy in PvP. So, the double now is at 66% of damage taken in last 5 seconds. But they never compensated to bring it back to where it was at. They literally undid their own buff for a PvE change and never compensated. You know what I mean? So this is where we're at right here, which is barely better than where it was at before it got doubled. But yeah, I'm curious what you guys think, and if you guys have any ideas that you would like to see Preservation get. This, I do believe, is my final list. That you never be lonely. Be the band.